No problem.
Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Mary Anne Petrie. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. The book Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, came out in 2020, followed by Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, followed by Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children, which came also Raised by These Wolves Volume 2, Child Trafficking Through the Foster Care and Court Systems. That came out July 17th as a bestseller, and I'm very happy to have a return guest. I have my friend, really good friend, Jim Schoch on. He was last
Wow.
on season 3, episode 337 and 109, as well as season 4, episode 81 and 113. He was also featured in my book, Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. He is chapter 9, as well as he's chapter 9 again in this book as well. And here is his picture, which I thought was pretty awesome. And I know you've got updates to your case. What a mess. I'm aghast at what has happened to you and your little boy.
Thank
On
you,
top of
Mary
that,
Ann.
you being a veteran.
Yes, thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, and having me back on your show. So, yeah, some updates. Basically, I think when we last left off, I had gotten recused, the diabolical, disgusting Judge Mary Anne Scattaretico-Naber from Yonkers, and there is nothing pleasant to say about her and her character. She's an oath breaker, she's a tyrant, and has committed judicial misconduct, judicial abuse, and judicial tyranny.
Mhm.
And all the while racketeering, engaging in, these racketeering schemes and child trafficking within, at that time, the Yonkers family court system on Warburton Avenue. And as you may recall, many of us targeted dads and moms, parents. We have protested, we have put federal lawsuits,
Mhm.
um, and nothing seems to work. I mean, you can keep going to the next steps. You can actually introduce your lawsuit, whether they were dropped, dismissed, what have you. You can repay the money and keep introducing them. Just a little side note on for people who have actually done the federal lawsuits, like myself, and they don't know what to do because they put it to their friends, which is actually what White Plains had done to me. I mean, we're dealing with transcriptual recorded evidence. And what has happened, and we just recap this in your short, what has happened to myself, to you, many other targeted moms and dads in this country, as well as the other, three major countries, UK, Canada, Australia, this 100 billion plus a year epidemic in this country, and these so-called courts, family courts, it's racketeering operations, all about the money.
Mhm.
They're abusing the children and the parents, as I stated, but they're putting these hearsay violations of due process, silver bullet tactics to just keep kicking the can down the road over and over and over again. Okay. My due process and rights were violated. My case has gone on for 5.5 years, and I'm going to get to the recent, another diabolical individual, so-called judge, Arlene Katz in White Plains, New York, who should have never taken the case. Never taken the case. She took it the 3rd of May, and she's off the case, retired 31st of December. I have been fighting for my little boy for 5.5 years. And as you know, Marianne, in your books, as you stated, I have spent in upwards of $200K across multiple states, put vehicles in the ground over this, from shuttling him back and forth to the unethical, astronomical, what they expected me to do,
Mhm.
where, mom doesn't co-parent in the least,
No,
okay?
they never
But
do.
never do. But, I love my son dearly. And for whatever it was, a few years there, I did whatever I had to do to get him in my life. Had I not have done that, he would have never, I would be having this podcast with you,
No.
and we would be, I wouldn't even know him like at all. But regardless, they've done everything in their power to keep him away from me and get me to tap out. And that's why, another reason that Judge Scattaretico-Naber, who I believe now actually got the position of Supreme Court in New York. Okay. So now
Oh,
she has, just so you New Yorkers know, this is what you voted for, more of her to abuse children and keep running these racketeering operations
oh
in New York.
man,
All the while
bad.
they're doing these 18B attorneys charging you, the taxpayer. So you know what? Good luck with that. Whatever. You can't take your vote back. But that woman should be in jail. Okay. Should be in jail for what she's done to parents and children. Okay. And even the Yonkers Tribute, where her stealing money from Viola accounts, is clear validation of that before I was even known or thought of in her courtroom years ago.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, you can look that up for that headline. But regardless, all these false allegations that go on in these courtrooms that keep, kicking this can down the road and furthering these cases, it's just a moneymaker, obviously. But I don't know. I mean, we just gotta, hopefully now that, Donald Trump is in office,
Mhm.
which these same things happened to him, nothing stuck. I mean, more indictments than Al Capone. I mean, you know how many things I heard of abuse that I, did that they would not put in writing. They would not even say anything specific. And when I
Mhm.
call them out in them courtrooms, being recorded on their recordings, okay, they just zip because they don't want to be, they don't want to say anything because they know they're being recorded and they know they're lying. So, they need to be stopped. And now that it's happened to someone of his status, of his, political, platform, whatever, present everything over the years, and I'm not turning this into red versus blue. I'm just saying it could have been, anyone else in there, like the
Right.
Johnny Depp, any person of this political status, and shame on them for not coming out when they went through it. Shame
Mhm.
on them, because essentially what these courts are doing is child trafficking. And that other judge, Mary Anne Scattaretico-Naber, she rides the coattails of Mayor Mike Spano, Mayor Mike Mafia Spano. Okay. He's protecting her doing this. And in the springtime of May, I believe it was the 3rd, okay, Judge Arlene Katz, took the case over with no intention of doing anything for my son, and,
Mhm.
like she even said to me, like, what is this case doing here? I'm like, well, aren't you the judge? I mean, like, she's like, well, how come you can't see, your son? I'm like, I don't know. Nobody will tell me. The other judge put a short order, no contact, whatever. Really? But yet I had him 5, 6 days Christmas time last year, no issues. Well, it was a great Christmas. I had him straight, straight, and no break in the days. And and all of a sudden, that other judge, so-called judge, which she's anything but, recuses, leaves the case, and got, because I called her out on the truth, and did that. So, but Arlene Katz, very dishonorable. She, robbed the New York taxpayer from May, the spring till the end of the year. She's off the case the 31st of December, and she's retiring. She had no business taking the case. Now we just my son and I and my lawyer and everything, we just met in the White Plains Family Court, because that's what they did. They changed it from Yonkers to White Plains.
Mhm.
And they didn't do anything. They just, they want me to Zoom session with my son with some sort of supervised crap, some sort of
Ah,
supervised garbage. And I told them, yeah, no, I'll do it. But you know what? Like a couple visits, that's it. There's no reason why my son shouldn't be in my life. The mother's crazy. Jennifer Demers needs psychiatric help, period. I don't come on these videos attacking the mom, this and that. But you know what? 5.5 years, it's time to name them all. Her and her Joseph McAllister boyfriend, had a tort on him, the felon, Mr. Felon, and another thing, because domestic violence happened in the courtroom under Lenworth Williams back in Yonkers, and what did that Judge Neighbor do? Gave me a public apology. I play the transcript, whatever, the documented thing, that I purchased, I'll play it. I don't care. She gave me an apology. I said, so what does that do for our son? But
right.
yet, these courts don't care. They don't care, you know? I
See,
mean,
I think you should have been given custody years ago, based on
Years
the
ago. Yes,
fact that
years ago.
she was alienating you via location. She just kept moving farther and farther away. Now, I know your case is kind of in Pennsylvania, then it's in New York, but these judges know you're being alienated and they're aiding and abetting it.
Yes. Geographically, you know,
Geographically, yes.
she 2,000 miles took him down there to Florida, Lake Worth, and then habeas corpus, immediately filed after I found her and all what was going on. You know, came back up this and that. Unfortunately, Yonkers, took the case, and summertime, whatever, August 2020, Judge Neighbor was on the case till basically this past January, whatever, February, like right in there, and 2024.
What a waste.
So what a waste. Wasted, my son's precious time with me, taxpayer money, my money, put an SUV in the ground over it, the whole
Ugh.
nine. These people are
Oh,
diabolical.
and took away your two-way rights.
Yeah, yeah, back to, the false allegations and all that crap, that, and all the makeup of all this stuff, like I said, that Donald Trump had experienced over 7 years, what have you. You know, I mean, I'm surprised they didn't tell me that I had a Russian collusion, you know what I mean? My Russian beard, whatever. I mean, you can't make this shit up.
No, you
Like, come
can't.
on. Like, I mean, I've done everything they asked me to do. And the whole time, they just keep attacking me.
Ugh.
And every time I called them out, and this is for your guests too. If you are ever being attacked with false allegations or hearsay, anything like that, and your due process being violated, you are to stand up, point at them, match their decibel levels in volume when they attack you, and you say, look, if you think that I've done anything wrong, I demand it in writing now. I demand to see it under my due process. I demand it. And I demand you send this venue to criminal court, what have you, a trial, a jury. That's what you got to demand. And guaranteed they'll just shut the hell up. They won't
I
even.
wish I would have known that back in 2015. Where were you in 2015?
I know, right? I mean, um, Marianne, I learned what I just stated a little bit late in my case because I believed in the system. I didn't know. I thought with my lawyer, Daniel Clement, that bum, I thought that when he took the case, he was a super lawyer. He just wasted time and money. And then Anna Avalone came on the case. For your viewers, I'm on 6 attorneys later in New York, 3 across
Mm.
Pennsylvania, 1 in Florida. Do you think there's something wrong with the system?
Yeah,
Like, come on, what the hell? I mean, this is some bullshit, man.
right.
And I'm, you know, and I'm, worried, like hell out of my son. Mom is just, I don't know, only thinking about herself. The court knows that, they don't want to give him to me because, whatever, then I guess I'd be reduced in child support, but that's not the issue. The issue is, give me my son because, like, come on already, now we got to go to, freaking January. Like, this is bullshit,
You
dude.
see how
This
they
is
drag it
bullshit.
out. See, parents need to know if you're thinking about going into family court, think twice. If you can reason with your ex, try to do that above all things if you can. But if they're a personality disorder, which you and I are dealing with,
Right.
we're going to get sucked into it. And we don't want anyone else getting sucked into this.
Mhm.
And the thing is, I know you've gone through 6 attorneys, but this was all geographical stuff that was being pulled on you. And you had no choice but to hire and go through 6 attorneys that basically just took your money. Now you've got an 18B, which,
Correct.
which is
Correct.
a free attorney at the taxpayer's expense.
Yes, that's true. And nothing for nothing. My lawyer, my attorney and her group, Christina. I mean, she's done what she said as far as filing. I mean, we filed a petition for full custody. I mean,
Hmm.
and we're going with that. It's just that this has gone on long enough, and my son's being alienated from me for no reason, and except for the craziness of mom and the courts.
Mm,
That's that they're like you said earlier, aiding and abetting her. And I mean, listen, the courts tried to classify her address. I've been paying for him from day one.
right.
Let's get that through, like, their heads.
And that's
You know,
without the courts making you pay child support. You
correct.
offered it up.
Correct. I mean, even when she took him down to Florida, I was sending her checks because there technically was no order. And later on, Pennsylvania actually gave me credit for everything I sent via, check. And
Mm,
she was using it for him. And anything else, I was also sending her via Amazon. Like if he needed anything, baby needs, infant
right,
needs, fine,
right.
whatever, no problem. But, you know, the courts in New York from 2020, the summertime when Neighbor took it, that bum,
Oh,
she, you know, kept trying to classify her dress. Mom kept moving around, from place to place. Now, I've always known, put that on the record. I've always known where my son is. And get this straight through your thick heads, through your rock heads, you box of rocks. Okay. I have a right to know where my son is at all times, just like
mhm.
her, just like her. Okay. As bad as she may be, she has a right to know where he is and who he's living with.
Right.
But oh, not in my case. I even had an attorney, a fourth attorney in Yonkers when the DV occurred and the police came. When were you going to tell the father, Judge Neighbor? When were you going to tell the father? And the judge gave me a public apology. Like, come on already, man. Like, this is some bullshit.
Oh,
And
yeah,
mm,
right. An apology isn't gonna cut it when she should have
correct.
just given you full custody. I know there's
Oh,
some interplay probably between her and attorney Sherry Rackman. I'm sure there's
oh
something,
yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. And
a
at
real
that
looker
time,
there.
oh God, she's a real piece of work. And she's actually a phony of who she actually claims to be, by the way.
Mm,
But the thing is, like, I mean, um, they just like did everything they could to alienate, my son away from me, and they're still doing that. And they're trying to make it impossible for me to have him, see him, this and that, and I'm still here fighting. And technically when the new judge comes on board in January, because the next court date I believe is it's like the second week in January
mm,
2025. But that'll be the fifth judge. One judge in Florida, the Honorable Judge Maxine Cheeseman, which that was a real judge.
right,
That was a
right.
real judge.
She did the
Okay.
right thing.
She did the right thing. Okay. Then I had Cohen referee Judge Cohen, and he was in New York. He was great, but that's the person that should be a real like a full-time judge, because he was screaming at Rackman, "She kidnapped the child!" The whole nine, the whole
Right.
nine. UCCJA, while mom was on the phone attending, the kangaroo court, and myself, Rackman, of course, the Judge Cohen, referee Judge Cohen, and of course my bum, attorney at the time, Daniel Clement, was there in person. But then I had, unfortunately, um Mary Anne Scattaretico-Naber, and then unfortunately another bum, Arlene Katz, who had no business even taking the case, and then a fifth judge. Like, you can't make this up.
No.
Like, and those things that judge and Engergon, or however you want to pronounce his bum ass name, when he did the Trump, okay,
Mhm.
and again, I'm not turning this into Trump, Kamala, Obama, Bush, Engergon, or whatever, however you pronounce his name, with the snide remarks, with the looks, with the rolling of the eyes, with the smile, you
Yeah,
can't do that. That's what I've experienced. There's a thing
that's what
called
I
code of conduct.
right, right. Oh, yeah, I've had a judge just sit there and smile and say, "Do you know you're annoying me?" And I thought,
Yeah,
I'm gonna keep it up. Let's annoy and then he said, "Do you want me to put you in jail?" I'm like, "Guess this isn't
yeah,
a game
yeah. What's the
anymore."
charge?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I mean, the whole nine. Like, not only code of conduct, code of ethics. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. I mean, and it even goes into even further, like conflicts of interest 1.7b of the Attorney Bar Association up there in New York, which all happened as well. So
Mhm.
this has been happening to millions of Americans, moms and dads, for years. I
Right.
mean, my case under Cheeseman in Florida was not biased. Under Cohen, not biased. Under Neighbor, oh hell yeah. Under Katz, oh hell yeah.
Mhm.
They're actually, they don't like me. They don't like me, you know, for everything I stand for. Okay. So, I mean, and being a man fighting for my son. So you do have bias in some of the cases, but
Mhm.
again, I'm on currently on, four judges, and the fifth one, like I stated, coming in January, and two of them were extremely prejudice bias. I mean, I was even called like stupid, like, to go pro se litigant. I mean, I don't think you're smart enough. Are you serious? Like, really?
Right,
Like, yeah, well, all right. Well, then you want to talk about something else? Let's see if she's stupid. Let's talk about solar all day long. Let's
right.
talk about electrical all day. Let's talk about, computer. Then,
Or
you want to bring up other topics?
the money courts. It's
Yeah,
just a money court. This is
that's
all this
it.
is. This is. And also in this book, okay, chapter 13, I've listed judicial canons, which
Ah,
none of them are following. Judicial canon 1, a judge shall uphold and promote the independence, integrity, and impartiality of the judiciary, and shall avoid impropriety and the appearance of impropriety.
mhm.
Conflict of interest, right?
Yep.
Judicial canon 2, a judge shall perform the duties of judicial office impartially, competently, sorry,
Huh.
and diligently. Judicial Canon 3, a judge shall conduct the judge's personal and extrajudicial activities to minimize the risk of conflict with the obligations of judicial office. OMG.
Mhm. Yeah, and you bring up the conflicts of interest like we touched on. And my particular example was Sherry Rackman is representing mom, of course, in the court in Yonkers and in White Plains. At the same time, she was representing um, Joseph McAllister in the White Plains. They were parallel. And then you take it a step further in the same courtrooms. Peck, Brodsky and Peck, David Peck, he's representing my son in both courtrooms, Yonkers, then White Plains. And then
Oh,
he was representing Joseph McAllister's kids over in White
well,
Plains.
that I did not know,
Yeah, so
that part.
you had dual highway um conflicts of interest. And they try to chalk it up like, oh, well, it's a small county,
Uh-uh.
really?
No.
Get
No,
out
no,
of
no.
here. Get out of here. Tell it that, seriously. So,
Ah,
but they didn't care. And so they were working both the cases. And then all of a sudden, I want to bring this up, the summertime, Peck all of a sudden, came on my side like, oh, the child needs to be in father's life immediately. Glad I got that on tape. And, and my attorney agreed and everything. And there's no reason why, the father shouldn't see his son immediately, was the quote. Okay. But yet, when we went back to court recently, this past the 4th of November, all Judge Katz could talk about was, oh, is there order of protection? She's going on about these orders of protection. There are none. There are
no,
none. And
no.
my attorney, Christina Hall, was like, well, no, Judge, there's no whatever temporary orders on my client. And shockingly, Sherry Rackman was like, she spoke up and was like, no, Judge, there's none. And that went out back in Yonkers, however many, whatever, couple years ago, whatever it was,
Mhm.
year and some change ago, whatever it was. And so right there, she was flexing her muscle because I guess she was pissed off because we did a protest on, how corrupt the family court system is. And she was trying to try to intimidate and strong arm me. I didn't say anything because, like I said, I don't have a parking ticket on me. And, she was throwing all that around, just wasting time. And then, like I said, the attorneys spoke out
Mhm.
about it. And then they just moved right into this, oh, well, we'll Zoom session with him, all this bullshit. Like,
Mhm.
get the hell
Mhm.
out of here. He's a 5.5-year-old. He doesn't know what that is. He's not, it's not a relationship,
No.
So,
And then
you know,
you had told me that your child questioned if you were his father, which I found very heartbreaking. And I
very,
found this very disgusting because I'm thinking your ex is having him call her four-count
yes,
felon boyfriend dad.
yes. Yeah. I believe it was Lenworth Williams at the time. Not that he was really any better. I mean, we've got him on video and partying with them and all that stuff, laughing, eating, drinking, all that. That's another conflict of interest, by the way, for your viewers. If you ever
Yes.
find that, make sure you record them like I did and get pictures. And he had stated in the courtroom, like, Judge, neighbor, when were you going to call, the father? Cause DV, had happened. And, had that have been me, I would have been whatever,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you would have been sent to prison or
Yeah,
jail.
exactly. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. So and another thing for your viewers, when you get into family court, do not sign up, do not get on child support, because what they're doing is they're blackmailing. Like,
Mhm.
you get on child support and you're paying for your children, this and that, you know, um, and what's going to happen is you're locked into the system. Now
Uh-huh.
you're locked into one area, and then you're locked into the custody visitation battle of it. Now they got now they got everything against you, because what they're doing is they're not letting you see your kids, because they know if they do that, you're going to be reduced into child support. So don't put yourself on child support. Don't get on child support. It's not that you don't love your kids. It's not that you don't want to take care of your kids. And for all you idiots out there that, oh, deadbeat dad, this and that, I'll show you the $200,000 receipts. So if anyone thinks that, you can stick it up in your rear, the
Well,
backside,
yeah, and you're
because
also paying for medical. You're also
oh, absolutely, and
he's
great medical at that.
oh,
But yet I can't
definitely.
I can't see my goddamn kid. Like
Right.
like fuck
Well,
out of
see,
here.
and the thing is, in New York State, we've talked about this before, Morgan versus Morgan, and, the
Yes,
guy took it to the appeals, and the judge granted that if she's withholding the child from him, then his
correct,
child support should be suspended. Why are
correct.
we doing this across the nation?
Correct. Well, you can actually, only if you put the Morgan versus More, or any case for that matter, which I know some others, because any case that wins becomes 50 state statute. And I'm glad we touched on this subject, because remember something, for all these federal lawsuits and all the parents that I know that did them, they do not want you to win your federal lawsuit, because your lawsuit, like Schoch versus Demers or Smith versus Jones, whatever, now becomes 50 state statute and can be used across the nation. And, someone out in Utah could be like, oh my God, that happened to me. And my attorney down in Florida, Amy Cosentino, who was also on your first show with
Mhm.
me, great attorney. Um, she did that. She had cited many 50 state statute cases to show the judge that when mom kidnapped our son, it happened in, whatever, all these other cases. And the judge reviews this and says, you know what, you're right. Look at this pattern. And that's the pattern that's been going on in this case far too long. And the bull, the BS has to stop, because if the BS doesn't stop, then you know what? The money's going to stop. The money's going to stop. And it's going to
Mhm.
be sooner than later. Keep my son away from me for no reason, and we'll see. Keep it up. Keep it
Mhm.
up. Because I've
Right.
never been a threat. I've never been a threat with him. It's always been caring, loving. Everything's been great. I
Mhm.
have everything to provide for him. They've asked me to do everything. I've done it all.
Yep.
Every hoop they put in front of me in that circus, they lit it on fire, expect me to jump through, and I did, to perform like a circus animal. Well, you know what? Enough of the bullshit. FBI, hashtag FBI, do your job.
Mhm.
Come on, let's investigate these judges, because what they're doing is a RICO. It's a RICO.
Mhm. And also, yeah, I don't recall signing anything, but they slapped child support on me, even though they cost me my job or a career of
Yeah.
a registered nurse of 23 years. And I get this thing in the mail like, "What is this?" And I
Yep.
called domestic relations in Pennsylvania, and I said, "What is this?" And her answer was she laughed, and she said, "Oh, as soon as your ex got full custody, he ran down here and he filed right away on you the same
That's why.
day." And it's
See,
like, "Oh."
but see, that's why, because he got full custody. See, I know many other parents where they're still fighting for their kids, and excuse me, whether they have visitation or not, they, at least in the cases that I know, they're ongoing, um, they're not paying child support. You know what I mean? And so, and again, it just sucks that it's got to come down to something like that, because you
Mhm.
know the child needs to be taken care of. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, and I get it. You know what I mean? I get it. But I was paying this girl almost 2 grand a month for
Ugh.
almost whatever, a few years at one time. And, I mean, come on. If you got to pay someone that kind of money, then guess what? You don't deserve to be the temporary sole residential parent, because that means that you are not in that position.
Mhm.
If you need a free ride to, like, you know, that level, okay, then you know what? You don't belong, and this is someone who, did everything she did. I have a mountain of evidence is high, bounces from place to place, not with a good dude, which, hey, that's fine. She wants to be here, that's fine, but you got our kid around him. You know what I mean? So, and what are you hiding? What are you hiding, courts? What are you hiding, mom? So, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you got to think outside the box, because
Mhm.
it's just unbelievable what the level they're taking it to with extortion. And
Mhm.
they're basically blackmailing you. I like to tell people all the time, had the cartels had kidnapped my son and I would have gave him 200K, 200K, I would have got him back.
Right.
I would
Yeah.
have got him back. But you know what? With these freaks in New York, in that shithole, hashtag NY shit, because that's what it is. Okay. You see it, crime through the roof, in that bum state, from all them policies up there. Okay. Well, that's what they do. They're trying to extort us. Okay. So they can prop up programs,
Mhm.
prop up their pockets. And that's money laundering. That's racketeering operations, child
Right.
trafficking.
Yes, you have been trafficked. Parents are trafficked. They don't realize it. They think it's only child trafficking in the family court system, but the parents are being trafficked. If you are paying spousal support or child support, you are being trafficked. You are a slave.
Yep. And I want to say one thing for you viewers out there that have stayed in this podcast for this long, so, oh, this guy, he looks upset and he this, he that, if you want to form an opinion about me, what have you, you know what? Hey, that's fine. You can do that. But you can go see the beautiful videos of my son and I. This is what happens when you've been tortured. You don't have
Mhm.
any, unless you've been through it, you have no idea what we've been through. You have no idea what Mary Ann, myself, and other moms and dads have been through. Nosebleeds every other day,
Mhm.
loss of sleep, breaking out in, like, painful,
Mhm.
cysts and stuff like that. I'm telling you, these people have us in a cage, and that cage is called a POW, and
Mhm.
they're poking you with a stick, a hot stick, and they're not feeding you barely a piece of bread, water, whatever. That's what they're doing. And it's psychological warfare to put any human being through this. Criminals in prison have more rights than we do
Mhm.
to their kids. Okay. And I know a case where a guy sees, his kid, where the girlfriend brings the kid to him and all this stuff, but, nothing for nothing. I mean,
Mhm.
we're not criminals. Okay. But we've been
Yeah.
treated as such, and to a degree that, again, these are crimes against humanity, and these
Mhm.
people ought to be in solitary confinement, and they are aided and abetted by Mayor Mike Mafia Spano. Judge Mary Anne Scattaretico-Naber told me at the end of that year, whatever, beginning, January there, oh, good luck in another courtroom, Mr. Schoch, snide remark, you know, and, yeah, well, what's that supposed to mean? She knew, because she already spoke to who was going to take the case, another diabolical so-called judge, Arlene Katz.
They, inform each other. I've even seen that with my own eyes in the
Yes.
superior court from going to the lower court to this appeals thing.
Yeah.
I've seen it with my own eyes that, boy, they do talk.
Yep. Yep, they're either golfing together or they're hanging out together at parties, which we've caught them. I mean, it's just, they go to these engagements. And hey, that's fine. But at the end of the day, when you got a job to do, you're supposed to be impartial. You're not
Mhm.
supposed to be one side or the other, or only about the money. I just, I mean, you look at this case. I mean, come on, 5.5 years. And, I mean, and since the last time I saw my son, I mean, and his grandmother, I mean, December, like, are you kidding me? Like, come on, and
It's
they have
so
no
sad.
reason. They will not give any reason. They will not produce any proof, nothing.
Right, right. Because I think they're being paid off and, you have a very good career yourself, and I think
Thank
that's
you.
the money that's
Yes.
feeding them.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
your son is child psychologically abused,
Yep.
geographically alienated, and
Yep.
he and to think that, your mother is so wonderful,
Thank you.
and that
Yes.
she raised you and you're a veteran,
Thank you.
and you've got this good career, and she can't see her grandchild?
I know. I know. It's horrific. It's horrific. And they're torturing all of us for no reason. And what do you do? But you
Mhm.
just keep fighting, and protesting and filing lawsuits and everything else. And speaking of that, the protests are going to get more personal now.
Right,
Okay?
I've heard. Yes, I've heard.
Yes. And now we're going to be protesting the homes of people like, Sherry Rackman. We're
Mhm,
going to be protesting mom. So, I hope
mhm.
my son actually sees me out there. We're going to be protesting, obviously the courts. We're going to be protesting David Peck of Brodsky and Peck Law Firm. We're going to be protesting Katz's residence, Mary Anne Scattaretico-Naber's residences. Okay. You can't hide.
Well,
Everything's on the internet today. I mean,
right,
we
it's
we
already
know it
even
all.
those things are already being done. So,
Yes,
um,
yes.
I saw another fellow on YouTube and on Facebook, and they were protesting at a judge's house.
Mhm.
I thought, "What?"
Yes, Roman Brick actually,
Roman brick,
and
yep.
Eli Evans and a bunch of other parents protested. I believe it was Janet McFarland
Yes.
in their case, another corrupt judge. And
Mhm,
they peacefully protest up and down the street, what have you, around the residence of the judge. Let your neighbors see who you really are. Let your neighbors see what you're doing. Let the community see what you're doing, you judges, you attorneys, because at the end of the day, you took an oath to be in the best interest of these children. And you know what? Granted, okay, you've been on the case, since 2020 of the summer. You can't make a decision by now.
I know, I know. Well, they wanna drag the case out.
Right, right.
Ugh,
Yep. So
it's
we
also at the kid's expense. They're
yep,
dragging this out at the child's expense.
exactly. Horrendous.
It
But I
is.
just hope now, with all Trump's plans that he has, I mean, listen, for all you people that say, oh, you're a MAGA Trump, whatever, that said, listen, he did a couple things bad for me. You're never going to get everything exact in a president, but we need to have a strong leader that's going to follow, put it, the law's already on the books, but it's got to be forced. I know what it feels like. Marianne knows what it feels like to be judicially abused and to
Mhm,
have the law used against us. Okay. And yet you're not charged. Nothing. Nothing. And those cops, or whatever, bailiffs, whatever in there, they know exactly what's going on, but they don't give a crap. You know why? Because they're collecting a check.
right, right.
They see it every day. They see it every day. Hell, I had one of them try to, oh, take. I was like, nah, don't you tell me to calm down, dude. You don't know what I've been through. You don't
Mhm,
know what that disgrace up there on the bench. What I said in that courtroom. You don't know what she put me through, the judicial abuse for years, trying to keep my son away from me for no reason. Get the
mhm.
hell out of here. And you know what he did, Marianne? He shut up because he knew I was right.
Right.
Knew I was right. You
And
know?
I tell parents, "Get it on the record, speak up, say it,
Yes,
get it on the record." Even
that's what
even if
I
you're
did.
right, if your attorney's saying, "Shh, don't let me handle it."
Oh, no, 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 no,
You
no.
say it, preach
Say
it.
it. And then in addition, purchase the transcripts like I did all along the way. They didn't even know. Not that they have a right to, but you gotta purchase the transcripts.
Yes.
Date, time, all that. I know it's going to cost you some money, but you got to purchase them because that's your proof. Because, like James Kelly said, we got to have cameras in courtrooms now. And look
Mhm.
up that Facebook group and join
Cameras.
it. We got to get cameras in court. Why do you think the cops are wearing the one right here? Because they were killing people. Not all of them, not all cops, there's a lot of good and bad
Right.
in a lot of occupations around, the country here. But there was a lot of stuff going on with them over the years that crooked abuse of power got away with. And, the community had enough. The
Mm.
community had enough. And a lot of people died over, what they had done. And cameras. Everybody's wearing cameras now. So why shouldn't I be wearing a camera in the courtroom? Why shouldn't the judge be wearing a camera? Why shouldn't the attorneys be wearing a camera?
Mhm.
Why not?
Well, I also think these judges should have tamper-proof mics because I've been court watching,
Yes.
and the poor, pro se litigant was trying to do closing arguments. He got tired of listening to her, so he just turned off the volume, and then he just starts
Yeah.
talking. I thought,
That's
"Whoa, okay, so we have cameras in the courtrooms, but we've got this idiot just turning a person off."
yep.
No,
Picking and choosing what can be said and heard. You know what? I mean, come on. You walk into this thing and it's like a World War II Russian gulag.
it is. It's a torture chamber, and
It is.
I try to warn parents, do not go in
Got to
there.
stop.
Yeah,
It's got to stop.
even married people. People that may be happily married now might not be
Yep.
happily married in 3 years, but don't go in there. Don't go
Yep.
in there.
Don't go in there
You know,
because you're
just
going into a prison sentence.
right.
And they already have you picked and pegged. They look at the case before you're even in there, look at it in writing, and they already know who's going to be,
Mhm.
the custodial parent or what have you, who's going to be the non-custodial parent, the children or child involved, and they're going to drag it out. And and obviously some states like New York, they're the worst. New York is ground zero.
Right.
California, Texas, they're ground zero states for corruption. And and again, you know like Trump had said, there's over 300 some thousand children child trafficked. Well, you know what, look at the millions that have been trafficked in the court system.
Mhm.
you know
Right.
about that, you know,
Right.
and think about why. It's not because we're all deadbeat parents. It's because we're being prevented. We're being prevented and blocked from being parents. I got a beautiful farm for my son. A
Oh, it's
great
beautiful.
job.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you. And I'm not up here trying to be like, okay, me versus her with material crap, whatever. It's not about that. It's about having a stable, loving, you know, environment for him. And, he's got his own bedroom. He doesn't have to share a bedroom with, her boyfriend's kids, you know,
And
and, I have a great school system, all
mhm.
that. But, that's where they need to look at it. And you got to start getting from the top. As soon as the case starts, it's got to be immediate 50-50.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you got to look at it immediately as 50-50.
Right, right. Of
You know,
course, people will say, "But if there is, exhibits and
domestic,
evidence of abuse,
right? Evidence of abuse,
then
right?
that has to be handled in criminal court." I don't know why
Correct,
the family court thinks they can
right.
handle this, but it's gotta
That's where it
stop.
stops. And you go right to criminal court and you look at the evidence. And I guarantee if that would have happened in my case, I would have been the sole custodial parent. And he would have been living here first, and all that. And
Mhm.
then, we would have been working on some sort of, 50-50 custody or what have you, um, to obviously, exchange him, whatever,
Mhm.
you want to say,
Right.
to co-parent.
Right, 'cause you would co-parent. You're not a personality disorder that would withhold the child from her. She does not know how lucky she is to have you as an ex.
I know.
Seriously, and she's doing this to you?
Yep.
What a s I'm sorry, scum. Scum.
She is, no, don't be sorry. She is a scumbag because just like the rest of them, because they do not want him in my life because they're number one, they're scared of what he's going to tell me because he already told me some things. Because you know how
Mhm.
kids are, they just talk.
Mhm.
And, and he's going to know. Oh yeah. In these Zoom sessions, he's going to know why he can't see his daddy, because I'm
Mhm.
going to tell him,
Right.
that child deserves to know. And to try to alienate his mind as to why, no, 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 no.
Mm-mm.
I'm not making excuses for criminals. You know,
Right.
I'm not going to get into a whole book and this and that. But if he asks me, daddy, how come I can't see you? Blah, blah, blah. I was with you before, well, he's
Uh-huh.
going to know why. He's going to know why. Because his mom and the courts are preventing me for no reason from doing so. And that's what he's going to know, because he has a right. Remember, this kid, he has due process as well. He has constitutional rights, which are being violated. Nobody
Mhm.
wants to consider that.
No,
Shouldn't the attorney for the child look after that?
they don't care.
No. And Peck just played me, or
Third
tried to.
party. Right, third party
Yeah.
parasites. That's all
Yeah.
they are.
Talking out two sides of his mouth,
Yep.
because like on the fourth, he didn't even say anything. Like nothing. How come he didn't speak up? How come he didn't, try to get my son back in my life? The hell
Well,
out of here.
it's just so
They're
I'm
all
so
scum.
sorry.
They're all lower than pond scum.
Ah, definitely. And then, you've got to pray over your child's safety.
Yep.
It's a nightmare. I really wouldn't
Yep.
wish this on anybody, but some people that don't get it and say nasty things, then I kinda wish it on them. I know I probably shouldn't do that, but
Marianne, all they want is they want to keep the children away from us. They want us to pay for them, and they just want us to be erased.
right. Right, and that's what my one attorney told me. She said, "He wants you out of their lives completely." And I, like, didn't get it.
Well, you know what? And hey, that's fine. If our exes want that, that's fine. But guess what? These judges and lawyers went
Mhm,
to school, and they're supposed to be educated, and they're supposed to be paid for, in some cases like 18B and stuff, supposed to do the right thing, supposed to look after the child's best interest. So if the father or the mother is doing something wrong,
mhm,
you are supposed to say, hey, stop it, knock it off. Okay. The child deserves to know his parents,
right,
not just one parent. Like, get out of here.
right.
That's, and yeah, I'm like really frustrated, and I'm getting this out there, and, I'm not going to stop, because anyone doing this to this degree,
Mhm,
you're bums. You're bums, and that
right.
Westchester County courtroom, family court, Yonkers, New York, and all that, White Plains, it's ground zero.
Mhm, mhm.
Ground zero. And I
It's
hope to God that when Robert Garza met with Trump and Siggy Flicker from the Housewives thing, I hope they educated, because I know Siggy Flicker went through her own divorce thing, but I don't think it was crazy bad.
mm,
But from my understanding, they educated him on the family court system and how bad it was. So I just hope now that he's, you know, going for judicial accountability against the people like Letitia James and Engragon and Bragg and Fanny, with all the false, hearsay, and all that, which is what we've experienced, you
mhm,
know,
mhm.
all the lies, abusing their positions to do so. I just hope that it can trickle down, because the supervising judges like Judge Minihan up there, you
Mhm.
know, um, again, these lower, like these family court judges would not be doing this if they weren't being protected from above. Like, let's just say I'm a family court judge, and okay, I'm looking at this as a career. Yeah, I want to, I'm gonna run for re-election, and I'm gonna be appointed, whatever. This is a career for me, and I'm gonna retire from this job. Well, if I'm making money for the state and I'm doing it through corruption,
Ugh.
I'm not going to be the only one doing it, because I have to be told to do it, that I will be protected, because otherwise I'm going to lose my job
Mhm,
and I
mhm,
could possibly be thrown in jail. So, and who is that? Her buddy, Mayor Mike Mafia Spano.
mhm.
She's riding the coattails, Mary Anne Scattaretico-Naber, okay? and again, I'm not the only parent,
Right.
you've seen the videos of all the other parents out there, like poor Ashley Polano, grandparents, Jose and Didi Diaz,
Mhm.
Jessica Safardi, the list goes on and on. That have been in this,
Yep.
Westchester County, and it's even more than it's Orange County, it's Rockland County, it's, I
Long
know other
Island,
parents.
nasty, just nasty, and, God
Yep.
is watching.
Yes. So they're
Ah,
they're being told to do this, and they're confident in doing what they're doing, breaking the law, crimes against humanity, because they have someone protecting them. And that's why we need, us as the parents, and hopefully this administration coming in are going to squeeze them, and put the pressure on them
mhm,
so that, they're going to either go to jail or both, or start whatever, or start doing the right thing, turn over a new leaf, whatever it is,
mhm.
or you're going to be fired. We're going to have some new constitutional courts, constitutional judges that are going to rule on evidence and not on hearsay, and, just wanting to kick the can down the road for money.
Well, then it would also entail, I won't keep you all afternoon, but it would also
Yep,
entail cleaning out these courthouses because these clerks are extremely powerful. And what was said on one of my podcasts was some of these clerks just choose not to give the judge the evidence. And
correct.
here you're blaming the judge and he or she was never given the evidence.
Yep. Well, let me tell you, I'm glad you brought that up about the clerk. Because that reminds me of a time when Petta Newton, what have you, the clerk in Yonkers, they didn't know that the mic was still on. And you know what was said? And they didn't know, like, I don't know. I mean, like I could hear, I mean, I was there yet in the court. I mean, so they should have known I was there, but they didn't, I don't think they knew I was there. And Petta had said to Judge Mary Anne Scattaretico, uh, does she think she can keep him away? Does she think she could keep him away from him forever? And the judge was like, Scatteratico said, I know. And then Petta proceeded to say something to the effect like, she's got to, like, get him back to his father in some way. And the judge basically said, I know. But yet she wouldn't do anything about it. Yonkers judge, because
Oh my gosh.
prejudice, you know, and she
Ugh.
mentors to young girls and stuff in Yonkers. And mentoring means brainwashing,
Oh, yes, yes, indoctrinating, grooming.
indoctrination.
Yes, yes,
So there's a bigger agenda. And again, viewers, look, there was a couple things that Trump did on the first term that wasn't so nice, for me. There was other things that were well, and I'm not turning this political by no means. Okay. It's just that, he's in there now, and what happened to him in New York, and I and other New York have experience. And this is my current home state, Pennsylvania. I'm not a New York resident, but that's our state flag logo back there, except with a little twist with the Gadsden flag. Marianne, would you like to touch on that 1775 December flag?
this was the flag you were carrying in when you guys were protesting in front of the was it the Yonkers courthouse or was it White Plains? I
Both.
Both. Okay, awesome. Yes, there's a beautiful picture of you holding this flag and walking with it. And I, as we were talking earlier, it's like, how is that spelled Gadsden? It's Gadsden flag. Don't tread on me. My husband just bought one of those flags, but it's not as nice as yours. I'm telling you right now. But
I'll send you the link.
yeah, please do. Please do. I'm so glad. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, and why do I have that flag? Because, okay, number one, obviously this half is, like I stated, my home state, but this half combined is the times that we've been living in. These are
Hmm.
revolutionary times, and they're no better than redcoats from
Right.
back under King George III. So combined, you know, this is the message that I and all other parents are up against: tyranny. You know, that's all they're missing is the red coats
Oh, no, they're still
and the
there.
white and the white phony wigs.
But they're still there. You wanna know why? I think I know you know why, because of the bar means British
Yes.
Accreditation Regency.
Yes.
So they're still in this country,
Correct.
except we're not talking with British accents today.
Correct. Correct. And we, the patriots, we, the parents, you know, we, the people, are fighting for our children, the most precious gift
Mm,
from God, our inalienable rights. Okay. You know, and that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our children that we
right.
care and love for each and every day. You know, listen, I'm nobody's judge, but God is going to judge these people for what they've done. And I just, like I said, I just hope that, you know, the current administration, now that, you know, he has experienced it for those years, can do something about it from the top down because these judges are getting away with murder. You know how
Oh,
many
yeah.
you know how many children have died under these judges because they give the children either back to the abuser or they let the child live in a abusive relationship, what have you.
Foster care, yep.
Correct. CPS, foster care, you know, they're all in on it together. All these alphabet soup agencies, you know, and I'm telling you, I would love to sit down. I would love to sit down with one of these alphabet soup agencies and tell them what I've been through, you know, but they don't want to. FBI, they don't want to. You know, whoever, you know, CIA, whatever. No, you know, police, nobody cares.
No,
Nobody cares because they know what's going on.
it's a civil
They don't want to
matter.
get involved because they were hijacked. They were
Mhm,
weaponized.
mhm,
And you know, under like Garland with DOJ, they were
mhm,
all weaponized. I mean, why do you think we had all those whistleblowers come out? I think it was a year ago, you know, because those were career people in career jobs and they
mhm.
want to retire and they didn't want to go down with the ship, the sinking ship, you know, because they came out and they started exposing what was going on in these three letter, you know, agencies. And we need them to help us, to help our children. We
Mhm,
need them to investigate these judges and attorneys gone rogue because combined authoritative the collaboration of efforts and positions, it is a RICO like they
mhm.
brought the mob down years and years ago. But it's alive and well up in Westchester County. Let me
Mhm.
tell you, alive and
Oh,
well.
it is. And I'm sure other states, ugh, it's just
They,
terrible.
yeah, they want to know where these children are trafficked from. Look at family court. You want to
Exactly.
start, you want to start doing, you know, saving the children. Look at family court
Right.
because it's been going on for years. And unless you really been there or investigate our stories, you don't know. You have no idea. But
Mm.
believe me, we do.
Mhm.
Save the children. Save the children. Do what's right for the children.
Exactly. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. Don't jump off. Oh,
Cool.
how can people reach you if they have any questions? How do you wanna be reached?
You can hit me up on Jim Schoch, and you can see the spelling down there on the screen. That's on Facebook.
Mhm.
They can message me on Messenger or they can hit me up at MULE1991 at yahoo.com. That's mule 1991 at yahoo.com. That was a beautiful black and tan coonhound I had years ago. God rest his soul.
Aw,
And his name was Mule. He was a purple ribbon champion, Kalamazoo,
wow.
Michigan. Yep. And you can get me there, or you can reach me at my small platform,
Mhm.
which honestly has been lacking lately. But I do have a couple of guests that are going to be coming on soon on the show. And the name of that show on YouTube is The Shockwave. And shock is spelled Schock, which is the normal spelling. I just made it a little bit easier, even though I am Jim Schoch. I just
Mhm.
made it a little bit easier on YouTube that way. And I combine it with my life on the farm and, of course, the, um, the family court and my hobbies. And hopefully in 2025, I'll be throwing more stuff in there, like my fishing adventures on the Susquehanna River, the Delaware, the Big D,
Nice.
River, and of course the Lehigh River in the in Pennsylvania and whatnot.
Wow.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Oh,
Thank
well,
you.
we definitely, and we will still keep in touch. Don't
Absolutely. Thank you.
don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Mary Ann Petrie. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. I thank you, Jim Schoch, and I wish you the best of luck. And we will keep talking and we will find out what really is going to go on in January, which I hope is the right thing, you getting custody of your son.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you for having me. And, hats off to you and everything you do. You're a blessing and an angel to all of us judicially targeted parents.
Oh, thank you.
God has sent you.
Thank you for your kind words. Thank
Thank
you.
you.